Welcome to your practice. We're calling this practice today a little lumbar curve tutorial. So we're going to take some ideas about lumbar curve and core and spinal support from the side bodies and twists and just create a really nice practice for teaching a little bit more about your lumbar curve and a little bit more about spinal support and alignment, so that you can find yourself sitting better, standing taller, feeling less pain and less discomfort in neck, shoulders, and back. So we're going to start with a block underneath us. So you're going to start lying on your back, and you'll bring that block right underneath your pelvis, so that you're lying on the block and you feel completely supported. Your feet are sitting bone distance apart or wider. You can have your knees drawn in towards each other and take your hands out in T pose. And I find that this pose is a great way just to arrive into my practice, especially if I've had a busy day. This is a great practice to do towards the end of a long work day, maybe sitting at a computer or forward head or shoulders rounded. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be a computer. It could be your paint easel or your kitchen sink or holding a baby. There's so many different ways that we round into our lives, and this practice will teach us a little bit about the opposite or the antidote. So let yourself arrive here. And as you arrive, I want you to feel how your left side of your hip and your right side of your hip are resting fairly equally on the block. And I find just that action of recognizing that often helps me just take a full, deep breath. And research shows us that sort of the optimal cadence of breath is 5.5 seconds in and 5.5 seconds out. And that's just a guideline to help us find that rhythmic breath. You're feeling the left shoulder and the right shoulder settling into earth as well. And if ever as a child you reached for something hot and then moved your hand away for it quickly, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing with any tension in your body. I'm going to ask you to let it go now. I'm going to ask you to breathe into any area where you often feel discomfort, even if you don't feel it right now. And as you breathe into that place, the opposite of contraction is expansion, and contraction often equals pain, or at least discomfort. So let's go for expansion. And let's go for letting go, releasing all effort, letting your jaw drop, letting your shoulders drop, letting your body just rest here. Beautiful. And you could stay here in your own practice for as long as you'd like. This could be a great practice just for restorative at the end of the day, and this is all you do. And you stay here for 5 or 10 minutes. But for right now, we're going to move along. I'm going to remove my overshirt so you can see a little bit better the alignment of my body. I'm going to hold on to that block, and I'm going to drip my sitting bones onto the far edge of the block. And I'm going to keep dripping them as my body allows. Maybe it's just a little bit at first. But over time, you'll keep dripping your sitting bones and maybe inching that block up a little higher along your spine until maybe your sitting bones actually touch the floor. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, so I can touch my sitting bones to the floor. There may be some of you that this is really easy for, and others for you, you think, oh, that's impossible
possible I'll never get there. But I thought that too when I first started this, and now I can do it with a fair amount of ease. And here's a little thought for you. As you let those sitting bones drip down onto the floor, so it helps, this block helps create a really strong lumbar curve, can you bring the front of the body a little shorter? So I say, can you bring the pubic bone towards your sternum and sternum towards your pubic bone? The sternum is that long bone that goes through your chest. And you just bring those two bones together, so that, or those two places, body parts together, so that you shorten front body. And anytime you're working with a lumbar curve, it's a great idea to shorten front body because it provides the support that the lumbar curve so desperately wants. You could place your hands here in what I call robot arms, so that the arms are at a right angle, my head is looking straight up to the sky, and I just press those upper arm bones down into the mat. So be from your elbow to your shoulder, you just press down. And you might notice you get even more lift in the chest, and it creates this really beautiful and fairly easeful back bend. Now, in best possible worlds, I want the forehead and the chin to be mostly in the same plane. So if I notice that the chin is migrating up really high, I lift my head up, I lengthen the back of the neck, tuck in the chin and rest it. If my chin is still high into the sky, I need a blanket. I need something underneath my head to kind of lift it so that I'm in neutral spine. And that will send a message to your body that all is well, because it's in a place of good alignment. And your body's not then worried about one part of the body getting too stretched, one part of the body getting too stressed. And so that's just a good philosophy. So after a couple more breaths of this, with that little bit of core support, sternum to pubic bone, you just notice where this stretch is happening for you. And then very gently, taking your time, because we were there for a bit, so you probably got a little fascial lengthening. You're just going to rock yourself back onto that block. When you feel the support of the block underneath you, bear down in your legs and bring the block just so that it catches the tip of the tailbone. And then you let your back rest on the floor and you bring the knees up into the chest. So now you have a little bit of support for the block. If that's too much, if it doesn't feel comfortable, you could also have a blanket here. I like the block because they're just a little more clear in their action. And then you bring the knees to the chest and curl. And now we're taking the back into the opposite curling as the arch, because we want our spine to have access to all of its movements, the arch, the curl, the twists, and the side bending. Couple more breaths there. Chin to the knees. And then gently release. You're going to take that block out from underneath you and roll onto your side. And just take a moment to sit in Vajrasana. That's where the legs are tucked right underneath you. If you can, if this is super uncomfortable, put a block underneath your tush. And just sit here for a moment and see if it feels really easeful now to be sitting upright. Take a cleansing breath. All right, so for this next practice, you're going to actually have to roll your mat up so that it's off. I just take it and do a big fold and then another fold, and that just kind of gets it out of my way, because I really want you to have the mat underneath you. And I'm going to try to show you at a diagonal. I'm hoping you can see me well. This is work for the obliques. So you're going to interlace your hands behind your head. My face is looking straight up to the sky. My shoulders and elbows and head are resting back. This is an important point, because it's going to be your tendency, if you're like me, which you may or may not be, is to lift your elbows and head off the mat. I want you to keep them solid on the mat. And this is even better on a hardwood floor, so you have lots of glide or maybe even tile. But you're going to inhale here and press your low back to the floor. as you exhale, you're gonna slide and glide your elbows and head to the left, and you're gonna slide and glide your left hip towards your elbow. So now I'm making a C shape with my spine. Again, elbows and head are heavy, shoulders are heavy. Inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, squeeze those obliques. So you're trying to encourage that curve. Inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, squeeze. Inhale, come back to center. And just make a mental note if that was easy or hard for you, because we're going to do the second side, and I want you to compare the two. So head, shoulders, elbows on the floor. Inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, curl to the right, gliding the upper part of the body over to the right and the hip towards the elbow. Inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, squeeze, bringing elbow to hip. Everything down on the floor, elbows, head, and shoulders. Inhale, low back to the floor. Exhale, squeeze. Good. Release that. Come back to center. And just make a mental note of which side felt a little more difficult for you. If you've got spinal imbalance, you might try, or sacral instability. I would do it on the side where you feel that instability so that you create lots of stable action. All right? And you can do that multiple times. You can do that 3 or 4 times each side. Work it up. Maybe start with 2 and then work it up. Okay, now we're going to take our blankets and we're going to make 2 burrito rolls. So the first one's going to go underneath our shoulder blades. The second one, actually you don't need 2 burrito rolls. It depends on your own stretch, but maybe you just need a fold, and we can always increase that, and we can always use blocks to change that, and I'll demonstrate that as well. So you're going to sit in front of that burrito roll, and you're going to feel where the bottom tips of your shoulder blades are. So in case you don't know, your shoulder blades look like a triangle. And the upper flat edge is that top edge of the triangle, and the bottom edge comes down to a little point. And you want to feel where those points are, and you want to lay those points down in the very center of that burrito roll. I'll sometimes rock left and right and kind of get them underneath me. And I know I'm in a good spot because my upper arm bones just grace the top edge of that burrito roll. There's not a big gap, nor are they laying on top. So they're just gracing over. And then this blanket that's underneath you is to bring your forehead and chin into an optimal alignment. So if your chin is really high, then you might need another little fold. If your chin and forehead are pretty aligned, then just be happy with that. And then take a breath here and just feel into that stretch. And again, this is a great resting spot. You can stay here for quite a while, feet wide, knees dropped in. And you can just breathe and feel into the arriving into this shape. So it's turning you into a little back bend. It's giving you a lumbar curve. But it's also asking the bottom of the tips of the shoulder blades to come in towards the heart, which is a really great place for them to be, because the shoulder blades work like a seesaw. So if the bottom tips wing out, then that's going to cause round shoulders, or vice versa. You know, if the round shoulders, that's going to cause the bottom tips to wing out. If the bottom tips drop into the heart, it allows for that open chest and the top of the shoulders to roll up and back. Again, you can just stay here as long as you like and pause the video and let yourself rest. This is a good antidote after a long work day, especially if you're at a computer or at a desk. And you just take a mental note. You make a mental note of how the hips are hanging on the earth, hips and shoulders. And you find your breath, and maybe you even take a moment to think about what you can let go of right now. It could be a thought that you're having. It could be a project that you're working on. It could be a conflict that you're having. But just like if you were a child and you reached for a red hot poker, you would drop it right away. So let's imagine that some of those thoughts or some of those things become like red hot pokers in our lives. distract us from ourselves and cause pain and discomfort. Let's drop them for a moment and just allow our yoga practice to be one of deep healing and relaxation, time away from those things that cause us discomfort. All right, we're gonna work a little abdominals again. So we did our obliques, now we're gonna do our front abs. So you're gonna take and I think of abdominals, by the way, as like an apple core. So it goes down through the center line of the body, not cross across. You wanna work that whole core. So you're gonna place your hands behind your head. Again, that head is in that pretty neutral spine. And you're gonna paint 2 arrows on your waistlines, like they could piston down towards the earth. And you might just take a moment to feel, what would that mean? Like if you had pistons on your waistline and you drop them down, it would move you into a little bit of a cat tilt. So it create strong abdominals and anchor you down there. Okay, so that's the first action. The second action is to bring your front ribs down and in, and that'll start to bring you up into a curl. Now, most of us grab the head, bring the elbows in, and crunch forward, and the neck takes a lot of the action, and the core doesn't have to work so hard. So I'm going to recommend that you imagine you're on an easy chair. You let that head rest back so that you can see the sky, and then you piston the waistlines and bring the ribs towards the belly. So you're still doing the crunch, but it's not with the head. It's not with the neck. And you're isolating it, and you're breathing, inhaling, and each time you exhale, you piston those waistlines, and you breathe the ribs closer to your pubic bone. Down and in. One more breath. Inhale and exhale. And I am a proponent of a little quivering. It's okay to push so hard that you feel that little shaking, because that's the neurology trying to catch up with that muscular action. Inhale, come on down, and you should feel that. You can do that again as many times as you'd like. You could go for 4. Let's do a couple more just to rehearse it. So head hangs back, inhaling. I'm looking up at the sky. Exhaling, piston waistlines, bring the ribs in, crunch. I don't really like that word crunch, but it's the one we're familiar with. Can you release your head back even more as you make your abdominals even stronger? We could also call this like a bracing action, so that we're bracing the spine with the abdominals. One more breath. Pistons and ribs to pubis. Good. Inhale, release. Okay, and again, you can do that as many times as you want. You want to feel the burn, because that means you're building muscle energy. Otherwise, for the next one, make your legs straight. We call this Tadasana legs, so it's like you're standing on your feet. They're flexed. The outer feet are parallel to each other. We inhale here, piston the waistline, bring in the frontal abs, and lift the head up. Stay looking at the sky. Inhale here. As you piston and work those abdominals, lift your right foot just an inch above the floor. Inhale here. Exhale, piston and pull. Inhale here, piston and pull. Reach that right leg back down to the floor. On your next exhale, there's the piston and pull, and your left heel lifts off the floor. Inhale, piston and draw those abdominals together. Inhale and exhale. Head stays relaxing, back face looking to the sky. Isolate the abdominals. Last one. And release. Take a cleansing breath. There you go, and you could do that one multiple times as well. So you really strengthen those abs and give the support that you need for your lumbar spine. Bend your knees and roll to the side and make your way up to sitting. We're gonna come back to Vajrasana just because it's such a good way to stretch the quads. It's an easy way. And again, if it's too much for you, here's a block or a blanket. You just tuck it in under your booty. My feet are close to my booty. My knees are touching. And instead of rounding here and letting the body go into that rounded shape that we often use when we sit at our desks, I want you to press the sitting bones and come upright. And see if you can stack the throat right over the heart center.
See if you can stack the heart center right over the pelvis. And you imagine that those three areas, the pelvis center, the heart center, and the throat center, are easily stacked. So our intuition, which we feel is in the more belly region, and our compassion center and our expressive center are in alignment. So not only do we want to use our practice to feel the physical, the healing presence of the physical alignment, but also the healing presence of the internal spiritual construct of the body, so that you always allow for that easy flow of energy expression. Okay, from here we're going to find downward facing dog. So we're going to bring that block out from under us, remove our props off to the side. You're going to take your hands onto the floor, grab them like you're squeezing a grapefruit, like you want to get the thumb, the pointer finger, the middle, the ring, and the pinky finger all to squeeze that grapefruit. Tuck the toes under, and then inhale, look up for a cow tilt. So you take the sitting bones back and apart, look up, and then exhale, cat tilt. So you're curling the back. You're trying to get the back to open in all directions, top to bottom, left to right. And then from here, keep the cat tilt and lift your knees off the floor. And just use your use that work that we're just doing to create a lot of abdominal strength. Good. Then in from here, stick your booty up to the sky, back and apart, look up, and then press your thighs back towards downward facing dog. Now, if you're a spinal rounder like this and you can't get your heels to the floor, then I say come up to tippy toes, bend your knees, let your spine be long and strong, stick your hips back and apart, try to get them up to the sky. We mentioned earlier in our session that when the lumbar is curving, it needs abdominal action. So we bring those front ribs in and the sternum to meet the pubis. And it doesn't matter if your heels touch, and it doesn't matter if your legs go straight. We want to traction the spine. So stick the hips back and the shoulders forward. Maybe even they lift up a little bit. Find the neck in line with throat, to heart, to belly. If you can take that and start to stretch the legs towards straight, be my guest, but I would recommend a micro bend. One more breath. Exhale, drop the knees to the floor. Beautiful. From here, we're just going to reach our left leg with our hand. I've got it around the left leg, and I'm just going to swing it forward to a lunge. I'm going to come up onto my tippy fingers so I feel buoyant here, and I'm going to tuck my back toes under because that'll help me feel a little more action in my core. I'm going to make sure that this front shin is straight up and down. Yep, so it's not forward of the knee and it's not back of the knee. And then I bring the action of the feet all the way up into the hips. I can even press the left knee into the left arm back into the left knee, and allow my left hip to open a little bit to the left. One more breath here. Beautiful. You can keep your right hand on the floor, press down through both legs, and just open your left arm to the sky. A little twist there. And reach it on down. And you're going to take that left leg back to meet the right. This time the toes are tucked under, we sit back. And we just take a moment to feel the stretch of the feet. And again, you can be here for as long as you need. Some people, when they're first new to this, that stretch of the feet is excruciating. We can come out of it. We're going to grab our right thigh and swing it through to a lunge. My back toes are tucked under. My front shin is a straight vertical line, and I'm up on tippy fingers. I'm pressing my right knee into my right arm, and the right arm presses back isometrically. And I just take a moment then to use that pressure to swing open the inner right thigh. The inner right hip can swing a little bit more to the right and create an opening in the pelvis. One more breath. There's that 5.5 count in, 5.5 count out. Beautiful. Bring that leg back. sit on back into your tucked toes. Take a cleansing breath. We're gonna move one more time through our cat, our cow, our cat, and our dog. Nice little animal yoga here. So hands on the floor. Inhale for cow. We lift the heart forward. We take the sitting bones back and apart. Exhale, cat. Use your abdominals. Pick them up from pubis to sternum. And now we press our knees off of the floor and we make that extreme cat tilt. And then inhale, swing your hips back, look forward, lift the hips up into the sky. Take your dog or your squat dog, knees soft, feet pressing. Remember those elbows, how they pressed into your knees in your lunge. You can take that same action here. It has to be in your imagination, of course, but you're going to imagine knees and elbows isometrically pressing together. That will help you extend your spine. Shrug your shoulders a little bit. Engage your abdominals. One more breath. Beautiful. If you can keep that strong action of abs and back, you can try straightening your legs. Beautiful. From here, you're just going to walk your hands back to meet those feet. We'll take the feet as wide as the sticky mat. Bend the knees and just hang over. We call this ragdoll. We can grab our opposite elbow and just hang. Let gravity help you stretch through the back. You'll notice that I'm not just completely rounding here. I'm making my legs strong, taking my sitting bones back and apart. One more breath here. And gently release as you bring your elbows to your knees. Let's take that little squat where you take the sitting bones back and apart. There's your lumbar curve. You can feel it. It's there. And then you meet that with abdominal action. And you see if you can make the legs just that strong. Look forward. Can you press down and come up to standing? That'll really give you leg strength. Yay. We're going to bring the blocks back into our practice again. This time placing them right in front of us. We're going to take, and they can be right next to each other. We're going to step onto the blocks with our right foot. Oh, I'll mirror you. And you can make sure that the ball of the foot is on the block, but not your toes. So the mounds underneath your toes right there, those are called the mounds of the toes. You rest those on, but the toes curl over the front edge of the block. Okay, now bend both knees. And just make sure, in fact, I'll show you from the side, just make sure that you're not rehearsing the rounding of the spine that we do when we're sitting at a computer. Find upright spine, bring your sitting bones back, bring your abdominals in, and then grab that block with your foot and try to push that block down and pull it back. And you just take another moment. Sometimes I like to add a little movement here for the shoulders, reaching forward and exhaling back. Inhaling forward, exhaling back. Each time I'm pushing and pulling that foot back, and I'm working the arch and I'm making my legs strong. Good. Let's just rest for a moment. Look down at your foot. Make sure that arch is lifting up, and then release it. Whoo! Shake out your legs. All right, we're going to do second side, so your left foot gets onto that block. I'm doing my right because I shifted, so don't mind me. Bend both knees. Rest the mounds of the toes. The toes can curl over the front end of the block, and you're just going to squeeze it. And again, you're going to make sure you're not tucking your booty under and flattening out the low back. You want that lumbar curve. Knees are bent. You can even put a hand on your front knee here. But you're going to push down with that foot and try to pull it isometrically back. You're going to, if you feel underneath you, you're going to feel some hamstring firing. If you want to add your hands, inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale. If I look at that foot, I see that beautiful arch lifting, and that's really good. Beautiful. Let's come to the front of the mat. You can use these blocks there too, but I just want to rehearse that action of the feet. So feet sitting bone distance apart,
sides of the feet parallel to each other. This is Tadasana. I'm going to remember that block action. Bring my hands to the hips. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, block action of the feet takes us forward. All four corners of the feet are on the mat. I'm not rocking and rolling out to the outer edge. I'm making sure the inner edge is strong. But I'm remembering that block action and pressing down and pulling the feet back. That'll bring muscle energy all the way up the legs, maybe even all the way up into the waist or ribs. And then you just bow forward here. And the more you can work your legs in this standing forward fold, the better it will be. And the more it will release your back. And the legs take over all of the action, it frees up the spine. And a couple more breaths here. Beautiful. From here, inhale halfway up, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, bend the knees. So you're gonna just bring your hands now to your hips and lift your heart, and inhale, come up to standing. Exhale, release your hands. Beautiful. Let's stand to the long edge of our sticky mat. We'll just do a little side bending. So inhale, fly your arms up overhead. We'll grab our right wrist with our left hand and bow over to the side. Now, if you need to, you can peek down at your feet and make sure they're block action-y feet, and make sure there's a little lumbar curve, and make sure there's a lot of core engagement. And then you just breathe, and if you want, you can turn your face up to the sun. And rest the back of your head on your lower arm there, just for a little bit extra stretch. See if you can take your right hand back in space just a little bit more. Just stretch open those ribs. And then inhale, root down to come up. Exhale. I always feel like after that one I'm kind of, whoop, just my posture is just hanging off to one side. Let's try the other side. So inhale, sweep the arms up overhead. Exhale, bow to the side. You're going to take a few moments to note your feet are strong on the mat. Your hips are moving back in space, so you have a lumbar curve. You're feeling the drawing in of the abdominals, bracing. The back of the head can rest on the lower arm. You can turn your face up to the upper arm. And then that left arm glides back another inch in space. And you breathe into the tightness. And then you press down and inhale and come up. Exhale, release. Here's one more great one for the shoulders. Taking the feet wide on the sticky mat. Inhale, lift the heart. Exhale, bend the knees, bow forward. Let the arms come up into the sky and pour over the crown of the head. Stretching through those shoulders. One more breath. Beautiful. Release those hands. Come on down. We're going to finish up with a little twist. And then I'm going to take you over to my beautiful traction machine, the door with the strap. I'll show you that. So on our backs, hands out in T. Stepping on your right leg, drape your left leg over so it's all the way crossed. You root down with the right foot, sneak your hips to the left, and you drop your knees to the right. Now notice I'm not letting that left shoulder pop up off the ground. It's resting down. In fact, that's as far as I want to go. I want my shoulders to rest down so that I get a twist. I also want to find a little lumbar curve and a little support through my belly. And I'm going to breathe here. And I can look over to one arm, but if I'm doing a little forward head motion, which I tend to do, I'm going to look straight up and let my head rest back on that easy chair. And I just breathe into that beautiful twist, little lumbar curve. Shoulders falling down onto the mat, head resting back. One more breath. And exhale out of that. Unravel your legs. Make yourself symmetrical for a moment so you can feel that. You can feel the shifts and changes of the body. And then walk your left foot in the middle and drape your right leg over. Bear down on that left foot. Swing your hips to the right side of the mat. Place them down. Drop your knees to the left without letting that right shoulder lift off. It's just going to stay relaxed back. So remember, the head can look over to the arms, but I find that I put myself in forward head position, so I just let it rest back like it's on an easy chair. I breathe into that little lumbar lift, and I match that with core action. Deep breathing. Last breath. Beautiful. Using your abdominals, pull yourself back up to center. Unravel those legs. And just take a moment to find center. You could take Savasana here, taking your legs out, letting your feet fall out to the side, letting your arms be palms face up. And you just rest here. I recommend 5 to 7 minutes in Shavasana. Again, if you need to prop your head because your chin is way higher than your forehead, please do so. You can even put a blanket roll under your knees if that's helpful, but let yourself rest. Let yourself let go. Imagine that you're dropping that red hot poker. Whatever it is that brings discomfort into your mind or body, let it go. There's no reason to hold on to it right now. Feel how the throat is in line with heart, how the heart is in line with belly. Call that feeling center in the belly, compassion center in the heart, expression center in the throat. We want those to be in alignment. Take your time. Rest here as long as you need to. Namaste. If you've never tried a traction strap on the door, and if you have low back pain or you just need that lengthening of your spine and an evenness of side body, this is a wonderful pose. So I've got a yoga strap and it's engaged at the end, so it's a perfect loop. And you don't need much of a tail. In fact, you want it as long as possible. This is a 10-foot strap. So I'm going to take this strap, holding it in my hands, I'm going to take this flat edge here, and I'm going to place it just like that against the door. And I'm right above the door handles. And then I swoop it around the door handles. So now it's against the front of the door, that little edge there, and swoop both straps around the door handles. So now I have a perfect, safe loop to step inside. When I get inside, I've got my yoga mat here. I'm going to take that strap and place it, I'll move my shirt here so you can see. I'm going to place it just below my hip point. So if you touch those hip points, you're maybe a good solid inch below that. You don't want it on your waistline or your belly. So it's low, but it's not so low that it's on your hips, though you might be able to do that too. That's for another
another day. And then you take your feet nice and wide. What's nice here is I have a little mirror to my right, and that's going to help me with my alignment. If you don't have a mirror, you could use a friend or a buddy. And I'm just going to first test. I'm just going to do little leanings against that strap and just make sure I feel safe. And I make sure that this buckle isn't going to unravel. So once I feel safe, then I go ahead and step my feet wide and bend my knees. I'm going to place my hands on my knees and kind of grab them. And I'm going to use my hands to guide my knees right over my second and third toe there. So I'll take a minute to look down on that. I can also engage my feet so I have a little bit of arch lift there. And then my hands are going to migrate to the outer edges of the knees. We call this pressure cooker pose. And as my hands press into the knees press apart. And that will guide me down a little bit. So what I don't want to have happen is that you're rounding the back here. I want this to be a mostly flat back. In fact, if you were to reach your hand behind, you'd feel your lumbar curve there. The next step, though, to lumbar curve is always to engage the abdominals. So I'm going to shorten the front body so that I feel really engaged there. And I can either just kind of hang there, bending the knees, and allow that strap to just pull my thighs back and traction my spine. And breathe. Or I can also take that into downward facing dog. So I'm going to reach my hands on the floor. If I go into downward facing dog, I can walk my feet back a little bit. And then once again, there's not the rounding of the spine here. So if your hamstrings are really tight, you're going to have to soften your knees. You might even have to lift your heels. Just remember that you don't want the knees to knock in, nor do you want them to widen. So you're going to remember that work we did with pressure cooker pose, as if your hands were pressing on the outsides of the knees widen, and that will take my lumbar spine in and up. And then I can just walk my hands forward, I can squeegee my feet back, and just find myself in a really lovely traction pull. My throat stacks in line with my heart center. My core is engaged, and my heart center is stacked right over my belly center, my feeling center. And then I can be here for a number of breaths, depending on my own body's ability and what I can tolerate. Big deep breaths as I feel a decent stretch right through my low spine there, even through one of my ribs that's tight. I'm going to send my breath to that tight spot, and I'm going to re-engage my abdominals. Straps are such a great tool to have, and this is most people have doors in their lives, and so it's such an easy way to just give yourself some traction and stretch. Beautiful. And then from there, you just walk your hands back. Be safe, bend your knees, bring your elbows to the knees, just pause, look forward. You can crawl yourself up if your back is tender and come up to standing, and then just very carefully, make sure you're holding on to something. You just step out of that strap, and just take a moment to stand. Take a breath and feel and notice. Thanks for joining me. I hope that was helpful. Namaste. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Namaste.